Hello, it's TGC Requiem. I'm back with match 2 of this Modern Friendly League. Got the play again, playing against Space Crow. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably going to keep this. We can get a black-green land, an island. We're probably going to have to get blue. Probably going to actually start on island Massacre. Spell Snare. We might just have to go blue-black with the opening fetch, but um, hopefully the Serum Visions will get us another land. So we draw another land, but it's another black source. Tarmogoyf and Maelstrom Pulse. Definitely putting the Maelstrom Pulse probably on the bottom. Tarmogoyf probably bottom. Yeah, we need a green source before we can do anything with that. And really, with what we have right now, we need the fourth source for Cryptic. Let's see what we got for an opponent. Burn. Goblins. Foundry Street Denizen. Nothing we can do about that. Draw another Tarmogoyf anyway, since we can't cast... I guess we could cast 2 Spell Snares, but we don't need to. So, can't cast Hassiger. Probably just going to play the Water Grave sideways here. Save some life. Hope our opponent casts a 2-drop. They fall for the trap Mog War Marshal, which will get Spell Snared. I'll take one off the Foundry Street Denizen. Foundry Street Denizen into Mog War Marshal is pretty solid. Good way to do a lot of damage fast. Lucky to have our Spell Snare there. Oh, this is excellent. So we're actually going to be able to do Island and use Liliana to kill the Foundry Street Denizen. And on top of that, only so many other creatures have haste, and they're not big enough to really threaten Liliana a ton. So Liliana could do a lot of work in this game. So he gets a Frenzied Goblin. Goblin, Bushwhacker, Kick Tower. Well, there's one way to get 4 damage on board. That Liliana could have been great. But now we get our breeding pool. We're going to throw that down, take the shot, get our Tarmogoyf down here. We could cast Tassiger as well, but casting Tassiger makes the Tarmogoyf significantly smaller. Right now we have 4 card types in our graveyard with 5th grave card type in the opponent. So if we excuse me, if we jam our Tassiger, we're actually making our Tarmogoyf essentially a 1-2. And we don't want to do that because then it dies really easy, can't block as well, dies to a bolt, things like that. So we're just going to hold up a Spell Snare, hope he goes for a lot right here. It's a good chance Tarmogoyf can't block anyway. Goes for a Pile Driver. I think we're going to let that one resolve since we have a Tarmogoyf to block it. Oh, thankfully he goes for another 2 CMC. Oh no. So Bushwalker actually costs 3, even though he's getting to cast it for the search cost of 2, so Spell Snare is not going to be able to do anything there. So we're probably going to end up having to trade this with a pretty big Pile Driver. but because he spent all of his mana, the Frenzied Goblin's not going to be able to make my Tarmogoyf not block. So again, we have 2, 4, 12, 14 points of damage coming across. That's technically lethal, so we're going to throw ourselves in front of the pile driver. And unfortunately, unless we draw a land here, okay, there we go. I was going to say, unless we draw a land, we can't even play Tasigur. We're just going to have to Cryptic taps. However, now that we draw a land, we can actually play Tasigur. Now we don't care about the fact that we're shrinking our Tarmogoyf. So we can play Tasigur, have Cryptic up in case we need to counter something and tap their team, or tap their team, draw a card. So I think what we do here is we're going to, we actually spell snare the Mogg War Marshal. What I did not think about here when I did that was that Frenzied Goblin was going to be able to make Tasigur not block anyway. Granted, this is still just 4 damage. But that puts us in range of a Goblin Grenade. Get a Fatal Push, so probably going to Fatal Push that Frenzied Goblin. I think I clicked on the wrong one. Saw the red symbol there and assumed it was the right one. This is actually the one we wanted to kill. Definitely a mistake. I think I actually, so yeah. I guess we have Cryptic Command up, which protects us from a Goblin Grenade. So I think this time we're going to just counter tap. Yep. Which is probably our plan the whole time, unless they forced us to. Now we get a Fatal Push, definitely get to kill the Frenzied Goblin this time. And I think we just actually, hold Tasigur back. I mean, we're dead to a Goblin Grenade, but if we let him attack, we're also dead to a Lightning Bolt. So nothing happens. We get to return a card, probably Spell Snare. Draw another Fatal Push, which is excellent. Go in for the attack, assuming he won't block. Knowing that we have the Fatal Push, and I may... No, okay, so hold off. Probably should have Fatal Push there because a Goblin Grenade is pretty much lethal. Although the fact that he's holding cards at this point, though they could be lands, he also could just be holding up like to build up into another sort of rush attack where he would... it's a Goblin Bushwhacker, where you can kick it to get +1 or haste, or the Reckless Bushwhacker. So he may be holding on to a couple cards so that he can trigger Surge and get the haste dealio going. But we're just going to kill this here. Yes, I actually make a mistake there. So, excuse me. I go to Fatal Push this, but this is actually 3 CMC. And Fatal Push only kills creatures with 2 CMC or less, unless Revolt was triggered. So I should not have attacked there. I should have actually held Tasigur back, held up Fatal Push. That way he couldn't attack. So now what I've done is I have opened myself up. So I do Tasigur. He's probably going to give me Cryptic Command. Another Fatal... Oh, he gives me a Fatal Push back. Okay. Puts us down to 2, so we're now dead to Lightning Bolt. So what I do this turn is I actually attack with Tasigur. Put him down to 8 now. Replay Tasigur, letting the other one die, which triggers Revolt and allows me to Fatal Push the Reckless Bushwhacker. And it also gives me a blocker for the turn. Definitely going to put that Tarmogoyf down. Definitely faded quite a few draw steps here. Also kind of misplayed this. We should still be at 4 life to the point where, you know, creature and a Goblin Grenade would be needed. Foundry Street Denizen, Goblin Guide. So he must have had a land, but you can see he was definitely holding some creatures, hoping to get another Bushwhacker. Serum Visions is a really good draw there. We're going to actually Snapcaster, Thought Scour. Probably Scour to the bottom and Mage on top. Yep. Throw down the Grim Flare. Don't want to attack here because if he has another haste creature, we're just pretty much dead. And if he didn't play it the previous turn, he didn't have it. Alright, so now we're feeling a little bit better with Snapcaster. Attack with a couple here, and so I was going to say I would attack with 1. However, it actually makes sense to attack with 2 because the plan is to Snapcaster Fatal Push, which would give me 2 blockers. So if we're killing one of these creatures already, then you know, he would have to have 2 creatures, and again, it's unlikely based on the way he's played it at that point. He actually chumps with 1. At which point, we snap in, Fatal Push, and kill the other. Or do I actually... Yeah, so actually, in this case, I actually hit the Goblin Guide, because what I can do, he does still have the 1 creature, but my thought is Grimflayer's still going to do his damage, puts him down to 3, pretty much makes the next turn the last turn. But we also potentially can feed cards to the graveyard to make Grimflayer big enough to outsize a bolt, and we're dead to a bolt anyway, so... So pretty sure we throw the Tarmogoyf in the pit. Maybe put the Flare on top with Counter Squall. Oh, we throw the Flare, keep the Tarmogoyf, and Counter Squall on top. Counter Squall just, again, helps us get to lethal. If he tries to, and it helps us counter what we're really afraid of dying to, which is a Lightning Bolt or a Goblin Grenade. Thankfully he doesn't draw all that. The deck is mostly creatures. You know, it runs something like 17 or 18 lands, you know, 4 bolts, 4 Goblin Grenades, and then, you know, 30 some creatures. So definitely more likely to draw a bunch of creatures, but he did not draw any spells that game. We have to feel pretty relieved to get that as a game 1 win. And so I actually forgot to update the match status, so we are 1-0 in the match here. Let's move on to game 2. Oh, and I also just want to note, because I had not noted it, I'm not running Doomblade, so if we're looking at the list on the right hand side, in this league I was actually, this is a playback, the list on the right is my current list. The Doomblade was actually an Abrupt Decay, and the second Liliana at the time was a Collective Brutality. So probably don't bring in Dispel or Negate. Maybe bring in Dispel. The tough thing here is, if I, at most one, they only have 4 Lightning Bolts, and they have 4 Goblin Grenade, typically, and Dispel only hitting 4 cards makes it pretty dead against most of the rest of the deck. Negate can hit all of them, but we already run the Counter Squalls. It's possible the Counter Squalls could get replaced with the Negates just to make it easier if we're fetching up more basics. Beyond that, the Flaying Tendrils would definitely come in. The Night of Souls Betrayal and Damnation all would come in, along with the extra Abrupt Decay for removal. And probably cut a couple Cryptic Commands. The tapping ability is good, but it's also a little slow. We want to make sure we have the ability to handle, the early aggressive draw the opponent presents to us. Sorry to go on a mute there for a second. So this is just not a good hand. Looking for black and green. We don't really have either. We have no early interaction. Tarmogoyf could buy us some time, but with this build, this setup, he's going to be a 0/1 and die as a chump blocker. We may not draw the black source we need to cast a Grim Flayer, so I'm pretty sure we mulligan here. This is slightly better. Again, we talked about how Negate is only live against a small portion of the deck. Abrupt Decay is at least removal. Thought Scour is okay. It gives us something to do turn 1. I think we probably end up keeping this because we have 3 lands. And we get a Fatal Push on top, which is good. So now we actually are going to have a couple pieces of removal. He opens with a Relic. So we have a Misty Rainforest. You don't want to kill the Mogwar Marshal here. Just puts the other Goblin token down, which would give it haste, essentially pseudo haste for the next turn. Whereas next turn the Mogwar will die, you'll get another Summoning Sick Goblin. So we just go for a tap land here. Relic's going to eat our land, most likely. So what I actually do here is Relic is going to make it really difficult for us to get our creatures big enough to matter. And Relic is going to stop us from being able to get Tasker. He's actually tapped out right now, so he can't use the advantage of exiling all of the graveyards to actually draw a card. So I decided to Abrupt Decay the Relic here, because that will, he's still going to tap it and get rid of our Misty, but that gives us 2 different card types, instant and artifact, in the graveyard. So if I were to draw a Tarmogoyf soon, now we have a Tarmogoyf that's big enough to matter, and we restrict him from getting the card draw. And again, these card decks are, kind of a trying to throw as many resources at you as possible, and so this feels like the right play to me. Plus, he didn't play a turn 1 drop. Not to say he doesn't have one, but he's basically given up one of the most important resources in the deck, which is a turn 1 creature, for this, and so we're gonna blow it up here. Technically, it'll fizzle, or no, in this case, it won't fizzle. But we're just gonna be okay to take probably like 4 points of damage here, assuming that he kicks some sort of bushwhacker. Alright, so he actually gets Pile Driver, Goblin, and Goblin Guide. So 3 damage. Goblin Guide reveals Tarmogoyf. How about that? So not only are we going to get Tarmogoyf, we're going to have Fatal Push up. So now we have a 4/5 Tarmogoyf down. He's going to Goblin Bushwhacker to kind of pump everything. And then the Pile Driver is going to get pretty big. We reveal a Snapcaster Mage off the Goblin Guide. And so with this trigger on the stack, we actually just kill the Goblin Guide, but he would be swinging for a lot. And then presumably block the Goblin Guide here, so that we only take 6 points of damage. So unless I get greedy and try and use him to draw me more lands, which has happened in the past. So now we have access to Snapcaster, Fatal Push. Still not in a position to turn the corner and attack. He doesn't do anything here, so I think we just Thought Scour. Gets us an Abrupt Decay, so we're actually able to then just immediately use this Abrupt Decay, which is fantastic. Now we have Cryptic Command. We're going to play it down because the plan here is still this turn to probably Snapcaster Fatal Push. We also have Maelstrom Pulse if we needed it for Goblin tokens later. This reveals another Fatal Push coming off the top. So we're going to Fatal Push the Goblin Guide. Put the Tarmogoyf and Snapcaster. No, I didn't do that. Now that is surprising. I guess it didn't matter at that point. Tarmogoyf had gotten to a 5/6. I would have assumed that I would have blocked the 2 little goblins and destroyed the Goblin Guide with the Fatal Push, but again, since Goyf was 5/6, we're kind of out of bolt range, so we're not worried about him bolting. But now we have a clear board. We have a Fatal Push, Cryptic Command. Kind of gives us the all clear to start attacking with the Tarmogoyf. Legion Loyalist. And we kill this. At this point, we're kind of to the point where even if his hope was maybe he had a Goblin Guide, Goblin Grenade, the moment he attacks to try and get that 1 point of damage, Goblin Grenade is a sorcery, so he wouldn't be able to cast it at that point. So by killing it in combat, we're protecting ourselves from a second phase Goblin Grenade, doing a total of 6 damage between combat and post-board. Again, sitting back on Cryptic, we're feeling pretty comfortable here at 7 life. Not to say things couldn't turn for the worse, We got a really quick clock going on. Now we've drawn a spell snare. And the opponent concedes. So again, we go 1-0 in the tournament. Then we're 2-0, 4-0 at this point. And we'll be back with the next match soon.